That's true. Naked Palpatine.
Oh, you pick that one. Fresh out of the clone tank, nude Palpatine is my
Well, that's the first thing I think of when you say Dark Empire Palpatine.
I'm not a bum. I know this is the following week. I'm recording these on the same day. So if you're wondering why I'm in the same clothes, I'm not homeless. Just recording on the same day. We have the final original story. We have more stories that were written later that I've reviewed, chronologically speaking, and we have some more that are a bit weird in the third collection that we'll get to down the line. But that's for another time. For now, we talk about Elric Stormbringer, which came out in 1965. And this is kind of the ending. Sort of. It's a very unhappy end. But it's also kind of happy. Everything's coming to a head. Everything is going to end. Everything is going crazy. Elric needs to fulfill his destiny. The destiny that has been perpetually kind of hinted at throughout the entire run of these stories. Chaos is going to win. If there is going to be a universe, Elric must do his duty. So, a whole bunch of shenanigans happen. The writing, the prose seemed to be a little bit better. They started feeling like they're heading more to those 70s stories that he started to write. It just felt a bit stronger overall. I mean, not that it was ever bad, but just felt a bit more stronger here. But in the beginning of the night, because remember at the end of the last story, Elric got married. And so at the beginning of the story, we begin with him getting attacked in the middle of the night and him having to reclaim Stormbringer once again and his wife being stolen. So, of course, he must go and rescue his wife. As I said, there's a lot of stuff going on. He meets a lot of friends and characters. And at some point, there's a conversation had about, well, then what's up with these swords, how are we supposed to fight evil? And it's like, well, you need the swords, even though they're evil, because it takes strong evil to battle strong evil. That's what, what's his name? Severick says. And I didn't agree. I don't like the, I don't like the idea that's the only way you can combat evil is with more evil. I think that's a slippery slope to go down, and maybe I'm missing something, and maybe that's not the point that Michael Moorcock was trying to get across. It probably wasn't, but it certainly came off that way, and I just didn't really vibe with that. But again, and I'm mainly gonna talk about the ending. All I'll say is that this was a really solid entry. A lot of the Elric stories I've been reviewing, I have not really... I've liked them, but I haven't loved any of them. So far, the only one that I have truly loved was that origin story to Elric when he ends up slaying the love of his life, Semriel, and when we get to learn about that ancient civilization of Melnibone. But beyond that, it's just a bunch of kooky, weird adventures that Elric goes on. But this one is probably my second favorite, followed by Bane of the Black Sword, at least in terms of what I've read so far. And I guess that makes sense because these were all kind of written together, whereas these other stuff came later, and so the flow of it doesn't fit well. But that being said, I still enjoyed all those stories. I've not disliked maybe one of them, but I've liked most of them. But this one was definitely a standout, I should say. And do I recommend it? Yes. I mean, it's one of the best of the Elric stories. But it also kind of ends on a dour note. So I just want you to know that going into it. So you are, because books can affect you. It can make you have a bad day. But even with that, I don't feel like it went to its full potential with that. If they really wanted, if Michael Moorcock really wanted a certain type of ending, I don't feel like it was truly achieved. But yeah, I do recommend it. I'm sorry, again, I'm a bit vague as to the plot. Again, it's because of the whole thing of like it's the multiverse. It's everything. You got to save everything. It just gets so big and so grand in such a short amount of time that it's hard to fully comprehend the actual stakes at hand. When every episode is though the universe is going to end, it kind of ruins the mystique of it, right? Like I'm trying to think of like a modern day example. You take like the Avengers, which is not modern day anymore. It's a long time ago now. But you take all those movies building up to the Avengers, the first Avengers originally, right? You had Iron Man. He was just up against this, other evil guy in his company. Iron Man 2 was a guy that was upset with him. Hulk, it was a soldier that was angry with him. And the government, I guess. Thor was his brother. It was a little bit more cosmic, but still relatively made sense. And then we got to the Avengers, where this is a world-ending threat. But it works because we got to say more mundane adventures. Mundane. Compared to this grand epic scope. But when every story is the Avengers, it doesn't have the magic. It has to happen once in a while, but it can't be everything, And so it's hard for me to get invested in these plots and to give you like an exact order of events of what's happening, because it mostly just kind of feels like jibber jabber a lot of the time, like I'm reading it, I understand what I'm reading, but it also just doesn't make a lick of sense. Like it's just silly, a lot of the time, and it's hard to really get invested in that and explain to you what's happening. But I do think it's worth your time, especially if you've read other Elric stories and you've enjoyed them. I mean, this is the finale, you gotta power through. But that's about it. I know, short again. I apologize. That's my Elric of Melnibone Stormbringer non-spoiler review for you. I'm going to get into spoilers. I only really have two. But we'll get to that. If you don't want any, time to go. Because of this, I'm also going to read the comics, because I'm really hoping that I can have an emotional gut punch, because I feel like I failed that here. I did feel bad, but I feel like I should have been devastated, and I just wasn't. Near the end of the story, destiny must be fulfilled to save the world. Moonglam willingly accepts what's about to happen. Stormbringer goes and shanks himself into the chest of Moonglam. Elric, sobbing at this. Soon after, Elric screams at Stormbringer. Stormbringer comes back, but not into his hand, but into his chest, killing Elric. And the sword, laughing maniacally, gloats about how, in the end, he was more evil than Elric, and Elric couldn't match up. He ascends into the heavens, laughing maniacally, and due to Elric's death, there is now peace. Why exactly Elric needed to die, I'm not exactly sure. But that's how that went. Now, there are other stories where it's kind of this in-between state with Elric in like a spirit form. It's a bit confusing. I'll get to it eventually. So there may be a happier end. But all for intents and purposes, originally this was the ending. And I'm kind of confused. Should I feel happy that the world has been saved? It is very much meant to be bittersweet, I suppose. And I do feel bad. I liked Moonglam. I liked Elric. But I also didn't feel this emotional gut punch that these two characters that I followed are now gone. And I think part of that just goes with the episodic nature of these stories. But again, I think it just goes to that potential, because on the blueprint, on the page, there's so much there that I'm all for, and I think like absolutely could work to be like one of the most emotionally gripping things you've ever read. But when you actually sit down and read it, I just don't. To me personally, I just don't think it does that, and it's just so disappointing because I see it on the page. I see the potential for what is there to truly impact you, and maybe it will for you. But for me personally, just I don't know what it is about it. It just did not capture my heart like that. Like I felt bad, but I was not a wreck like I feel like I should have been. Um, all that to say, I have to read the next three because I can't leave it with Elric just being dead and that being the end. So I am interested to see what the other stories have in store. I hear they get rather even weirder. So I guess we'll see. But for now, that's all I got. And I've done Elric 2 weeks in a row, which means we won't be coming back for a bit. We have The Witcher, Sword of Destiny, and Claw of the Conciliator by Gene Wolfe. So I hope you all stick around for that. I also have one more thing I forgot. A comic, just because I've been playing a video game and it was related to it. So, but that's pretty much it, guys. Till next time. Bye bye.